And this is Globespan 24x7 News. Good evening and thanks for joining us. My name is Shakima Day, coming to you live from Georgetown, Guyana. Here are the major headlines for today. President Granger could name date for elections this week. Roger Khan remains in police custody close to 72 hours later. Chinese couple burnt to death in massive Freedom Hope fire. Another family returns home from hurricane-ravaged Bahamas, and 72 land leases distributed to Matthews Ridge residents. Over to you, Whitney.
Thank you, Shakima. Now let's take a look at regional and international headlines for today. Georgetown mayor proposes plans for development to New York mayor. New York man dies as his 5-year-old daughter is injured after jumping in front of a train. And Trump slams world leaders for shunning people of faith. And hundreds detained in Egypt for protesting against corruption. These stories and more in just a little while, but here's Kingsley Bryan with your sports news in the region and around the world. Kingsley, over to you.
Thank you, Whitney. Here's a look at what's happening in the sporting arena. Locally, Courts Pee Wee Football 20 kicked off this weekend. And in CPL news, the Guyana Amazon Warriors recorded their 6th consecutive victory in 2019 CPL. And internationally, Iranian women will be allowed to attend soccer matches. And that's according to FIFA boss Infantino. Over to you, Shakima.
Thank you, and now for the news. 55-year-old John Fitzgerald Hopkins of Kitty, Georgetown was delayed release on $20,000 bail after answering to the charge of engaging in sexual activity with a minor. The man appeared before Chief Magistrate Ann McLennan at the Georgetown Magistrates Court to answer to the charge, which stated that on April 26, 2019, at Queen Street, Kitty, he braced the 4-year-old minor to a gate and rubbed his body against her. The Chief Magistrate ordered a mental evaluation to be conducted to see if the accused is fit to stand trial. He was ordered to report back in court on October 14, 2019. Amid intense pressure from the international community, President David Granger could name an election date this week following consultation with his cabinet of ministers. More in this report. President David Granger is expected to meet with his full cabinet tomorrow to discuss the setting of an election date, in keeping with the recent time frame given by GCOM Chair Claudette Singh. Speaking on the sidelines of the 2nd annual conference of the International Decade for People of African Descent Assembly Guyana, yesterday the president hinted at that possibility. He said, open quote, "We have had the first meeting and it will be coming up again. The fuller cabinet will meet again on Tuesday. I have given them copies of the correspondence from the Guyana Elections Commission," end quote. Last week, the GCOM chair informed Granger in a correspondence that the commission will be ready for elections by the end of February 2020. Granger has long maintained that he can only name an election date, providing that GCOM gives a time frame in which elections could be held. Now that time frame has been given, it puts greater pressure on him to issue a proclamation and name that date, something that has been a debate for, well, close to 1 year now. The United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union had issued a call for the president to also name an election date soon. The diplomatic representatives in a joint statement lamented that the government is in breach of the Constitution and said this would hinder their ability to support Guyana's development needs. The Bar Council of the Guyana Bar Association has also criticized the government for not holding elections as constitutionally required. A no-confidence motion was successfully passed in the National Assembly on December 18, 2018. But instead of calling an election, this triggered a long legal battle that ended with the Caribbean Court of Justice validating that vote. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day. You'll hear now that the Commonwealth body has joined calls for President David Granger to set an early date for elections. Commonwealth Secretary General Patricia Scotland, in a statement, said that constitutional rule in Guyana must be restored by immediately setting an early election date in consonance with its constitution. The Commonwealth officials said enabling elections to be held without further delay is of utmost importance. Further emphasis was placed on the June 18, 2019 ruling of the Caribbean Court of Justice and the consequential orders which followed on July 12, 2019. The Commonwealth said the CCJ's ruling was clear that the Guyana Constitution sets out certain requirements for the time of an election after the valid passing of a no-confidence motion. The statement went on to say that the rule of law and the Constitution governance are fundamental Commonwealth values to which Guyana has subscribed. In this regard, and in accordance with the ruling of the CCJ, the Commonwealth Secretary General noted that a general elections in Guyana is now constitutionally overdue. Open quote. A general elections should be held in accordance with the unambiguous constitutional imperative to do so. The Secretary General has spoken with the chair of the Guyana Elections Commission and discussed Commonwealth support to GCOM, end quote, the statement said. We'll tell you now that a massive crowd of Essequibo Coast Region 2 residents earlier today picketed President David Granger as he made his way from the Hampton Court airstrip to attend a function in Queenstown. The protesters have called for the government to resign and for the president to set a date for regional and national elections. Some of the protesters also picketed State House in Anna Regina, calling for Granger to respect the Constitution. The peaceful gathering included PPP executives Leslie Ramsamy, Nigel Darmlal, Vishnu Samaru, Regional Chairman David Nan Ramdat, and Peter Ramsaru. You'll hear now that law enforcement officials have arrested 2 persons for the murder of BERBICE convict 33-year-old Delroy James, which occurred in the wee hours of Sunday on Main Street, New Amsterdam, BERBICE. According to a police report, James, also known as Slant Eye and Mafia, was imbibing with the suspects at a popular bar in the area. A scuffle later ensued, and around 3:45 hours, James was later found dead with suspected stab wounds to his lower back. He was rushed to the New Amsterdam Public Hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. The suspects were arrested and are currently assisting with investigations. However, Globespan 24x7 News received reports that the deceased was attempting to rob the suspects when he met his demise. It was revealed that James attempted to rob one of the suspects of a gold band when the scuffle ensued. He was stabbed and collapsed and was stabbed again. James was a known character to police. He was released from prison in 2012 after spending an 8-month sentence for an armed robbery charge. He was also remanded to prison in 2011 for the murder of C.O. Craig, who was killed during a robbery at a gas station in Stanleytown, New Amsterdam. James was also included in the photograph of the inmates from the prison circulating on social media. Finance Minister Winston Jordan, speaking on the sidelines of a media tour at Geniquip on Monday, disclosed that although the government may not be able to return to Parliament, public servants can expect a large salary increase in 2019. The minister assured this will be possible without returning to Parliament.
Public servants will receive a salary increase for 2019. All right? We don't have to go back to Parliament to get that.
And
we would have loved to go back to Parliament if we have to end up paying a salary increase that was beyond what we have in the budget. All right? But for the time being, since the Parliament will virtually shut down soon, then we'll have to consider what we have.
Jordan said apart from the promised increases this year, public servants can expect an even bigger increase in 2020. The minister said although there has been much anxiety in relation to the non-payment of bonuses, it is all aiding the long-term development plan, as it is the government's intention to remove it as a concept.
Bonus wasn't a concept that we treated with in the public service, because you will know you work in the private sector. Many of you work in the private sector. You only get a bonus when targets are achieved, when sales, revenues and so on are applying. We concentrate in public service more on providing a viable, livable wage.
The minister said government has not achieved this aim fully, but significant strides have been made to ensure public servants receive sustainable wages. In his view, an increased salary offsets any amount of bonus.
I, as a Minister of Finance, will tell you easily, I will much prefer to pay you a bonus than a salary increase. Simply because a bonus is a one-off payment. My budget could easily take on a one-off payment. It is not so easy when you have to sustain the payment month after month after month after month.
Jordan said he will most likely consider repeating what was done last year in the absence of a sitting parliament. The AFC has since called on the political opposition to return to parliament to conclude certain financial businesses of the House, but the PPP is adamant that parliament should have been long dissolved. We'll tell you now that the Guyana Rice Development Board says paddy prices have increased and farmers are being paid higher prices for paddy sold to mills as harvesting for the second rice crop gains momentum. As of Monday, September 23rd, millers were being paid $53,830 to $41,526 per ton of paddy. When harvesting commenced a few weeks ago, prices ranged from $46,140 to $40,000 per ton. According to the GRDB, the second crop paddy prices are higher than the prices paid during the first crop of 2019. At the close of the paddy intake period for the first crop, farmers were being paid $50,754 to $30,760 per ton. Prior to the commencement of harvesting for the second crop, GRDB conducted training of rice farmers to grade paddy and rice in all producing regions. The most recent training was held on the island of Wakenham. We'll tell you now that the Guyana-Suriname ferry service will resume on Thursday. This is according to the Public Infrastructure Ministry. The MB Sandaka, a Guyanese vessel, will operate the route as the MV Kanawaima still awaits repairs. The vessel will depart the MOLSEN Creek Stelling at 9 a.m. and depart South Drain, Suriname at 11:30 a.m., 10:30 a.m. local time. The public is hereby advised that the Sandaka vessel cannot hold 20 and 40-foot containers, along with trucks 3 meters in height and 2.7 meters in width. The MB Sandaka was recently upgraded and fitted with 2 Hydromaster propulsion systems powered by Caterpillar's 3406 engines, costing a whopping $291 million. Painting and additional repairs to the vessels amounted to $13 million. Remember to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest news in Guyana, the Caribbean, and around the world. Join us after these messages for more news with Samuel Saknandan.
We would like to ask all of our faithful viewers to kindly like and follow Globespan 24x7 Facebook page and subscribe to Globespan 24x7 YouTube channel to receive up-to-date notifications of when we are live. Globespan 24x7 has vacancies for full-time positions such as reporters, newscasters, and news editors. Persons serious about joining a new and dynamic news team are asked to send their application to careers@globespantechnology.com. TravelSpan is pleased to announce special fares from New York to Guyana for Christmas. Seats are available to travel, and depending on which dates you choose, fares range from $849 to $1169. These are limited block seats on American Airlines non-stop flight from JFK to Guyana. Call 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437. Or book online at travelspan.com. TravelSpan does have a payment plan, so travel plans, call TravelSpan.
Amro's Travel Service is pleased to support Globespan 24x7 broadcasts. We provide travel solutions via our 4 locations in Trinidad. Chabonas at 665-3383, Valpa 645-1604, Port of Spain 625-0800, and San Fernando at 652-4789. Remember, when you travel, Amro's is the way to go.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Globespan 24x7 News. It has been almost 72 hours since convicted Guyanese drug trafficker Roger Can has returned home and was placed in police custody. Information suggests that Can is being held for questioning into 2 separate murders. The notorious drug lord was deported to Guyana on Friday after spending more than 8 years in a U.S. detention facility for drug trafficking. Upon his arrival, he was immediately taken into custody for the murder of political activist Ronald Waddell and former boxing coach Donald Allenson. Can's attorney Glenn Hanneman, in an interaction with the media the night Can arrived, said he was informed by the lawmen that his client is being detained to assist with the investigations into these 2 murders. but has since remained tight-lipped on the way forward. Hanneman, at that instance, relayed that there is no basis to those claims and he is confident that his client will walk free. But with the mandatory 72 hours fast approaching and with no advice from the DPP on whether there is enough evidence to institute the charges, many are left wondering what comes next for Roger Can. The police have indicated that they are awaiting advice from the Director of Public Prosecutions, who is yet to comment on the matter. There are those who feel that Can should have been charged forthwith for the crimes he may have committed, since there is enough evidence to prosecute. But a close analysis would reveal that that may not be the case. Can's trial in the U.S. through revealing veered away from the murders he may or may not have committed and centered on his drug trafficking ring. The rest is nothing but speculation, since established COIs have failed to link Can to the murder of Waddell. Since his involvement, Shahid Roger Can was labeled as one of the most notorious drug dealers, gun runners, money launderers, and narcotic traffickers in the history of Guyana. By the time Roger Can had been arrested in Suriname in January of 2006, conspiracy theories had begun to circulate about his involvement with a phantom squad. With the deadline fast approaching for which he can be held legally, all eyes remain locked on whether an extension will be sought or Can will walk free, since the words of his attorney, there is no evidence that links him to the two crimes in question. Calls to Hanneman's phone for a comment on the issue went unanswered, but there is much on the ease. In a tragic incident, a Chinese couple met their unfortunate demise in a massive fire that destroyed several businesses, leaving millions of dollars in losses. The couple has been identified as 45-year-old Zhongqing Kui and 53-year-old Jiangqing Kui, proprietors of the supermarket where the fire is said to be originated from. It is suspected that the fire started due to a faulty freezer. The couple only migrated to Guyana and opened the business a few months ago. It was reported that the couple lived in the supermarket and were unable to escape at the time of the fire because the doors were operated by electricity and there was a power outage at that time. The fire reportedly started at around 1:50 on Sunday. Globespan 24x7 News understands that the couple attempted to hook up the freezer to a transformer, but the transformer malfunctioned, causing the fire. The fire quickly engulfed the building and spread to nearby businesses, completely demolishing a clothing store, a Chinese restaurant, Robin's bookstore, a mobile phone store, and the supermarket. Residents disclosed that the fire attendants responded quickly, but did not have enough water to quell the fire. Health officials in Ghana were today proud to announce that Ghana is the only Caribbean country to achieve the first 90% of the United Nations program on HIV and AIDS 1990 target, as the Public Health Minister Voldo Lawrence launched this year's World AIDS Day activities. More in this report.
The UNAIDS Triple 90 target by 2020 was developed in an effort to combat the HIV and AIDS pandemic globally. The simple and achievable triple plan outlines that by 2020, 90% of all people living with HIV will know their HIV status, 90% of all people with diagnosed HIV infection will receive sustained antiretroviral therapy, and 90% of all people receiving antiretroviral therapy will have viral suppression. Today, the Public Health Ministry reported that Guyana is currently the only Caribbean country to reach the first 90%. This announcement was made today at the PAHO boardroom, where Public Health Minister Voldo Lawrence disclosed this year's theme for World AIDS Day 2019. Minister Lawrence stated that of the estimated 8,200 people living with HIV in 2018, 90% know their status, 73% are on treatment, and 81% have achieved viral suppression.
Our task remains challenging, even as all stakeholders combine their efforts to accelerate the progress in reducing new infections and AIDS-related deaths in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, Guyana's national response has been aligned to UN global targets, and we are working assiduously to meet those targets of 90, 90, 90 by 2020. We cannot be complacent.
To be celebrated under the theme Communities Make the Difference, community involvement was highlighted as the key factor to combat the pandemic in Guyana. According to Minister Lawrence, communities contribute to the AIDS response in many different ways.
Their leadership and advocacy ensure that the response remains relevant and grounded, keeping people at the center and leaving absolutely no one behind. World AIDS Day offers an important platform to highlight the role of communities and civil society. Strong advocacy by communities is needed more than ever to ensure that AIDS remains on the political agenda, that human rights are respected, and that decision makers and implementers are held accountable.
World AIDS Day takes place on December 1 each year. It is an opportunity for people worldwide to unite in the fight against HIV, to show support for people living with HIV, and to commemorate those who have died from an AIDS-related illness. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day.
A family of 5 from the Bahamas arrived at the Chedijagan International Airport last evening and have plans to resettle here. Minister of Citizenship Winston Felix, who was at hand to receive the family, said this is the second batch to have decided to return to these shores following the devastating hurricane. The Cooper family, Vanessa Tate, her reputed husband Stevie Cooper Sr., and their 3 children, Stevie Cooper Jr., Stephen Cooper, and Steve Cooper, arrived at approximately 2200 hours. Minister Felix said the Coopers are just one of many families and individuals who have indicated their desire to return to Guyana. The minister said following an interview with the Coopers, all necessary procedures regarding documentation will be dealt with.
Initially, we had a list of about 102 persons indicating an interest. Then I think it broke down to about 28. 5 came last week, 5 have arrived tonight, and 2 are to come so far next week. We don't know if others will join that list, but so far we know about 2 others are expected to return to Guyana on this very flight next Sunday night.
Vanessa spoke with the press and shared her experience during the time of the hurricane.
Pertaining to storm-wise, horrible. It's nothing that no one wants to actually live through. Like, speaking about it, you'll get an impression, but actually going through it, it's an absolute difference. You know, like, it's a reality. Like, it's scary. We know people that became not just friends, but I would call family. Bahamians that actually entire families died. Our house, the entire roof came off. So it's like living out of a scary movie. It's like literally going through a scary movie. Oh, awesome. God is good. Like I said, I know entire families that nobody is alive. Like literally, the entire household got swept out by a wave.
On September 15, the Grimman family was the first to arrive home. Following the devastating ordeal, and was greeted by Minister of State Don Hastings Williams, Minister of Foreign Affairs Dr. Karen Cummings, Minister Felix, and Director General of the Civil Defense Commission, Lieutenant Colonel Kester Craig. Hurricane Dorian, a Category 5 storm, pounded the Abaco Island in Grand Bahama during over a 3-day period, leaving at least 43 people dead and hundreds missing. It also left behind enormous infrastructural damage across the island. There are about 80 Guyanese families living on the affected islands. The government, through the Civil Defense Commission, is coordinating relief efforts for Guyanese in India. Minister of State Don Hastings Williams and the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission, GLSC, this past weekend distributed 79 land leases to the residents of the Matthews Ridge, Rimawani Region 1. This activity was in keeping with a promise made to the residents in May by the Director General of the Ministry of the Presidency, Joseph Harmon. The residents have been occupying lands without any legal documentation for many years. Minister Hastings Williams, in her address, said the distribution of the titles is a testament to the hard work done by the GLSC staff in keeping with the government's plan to ensure that land acquisitions for indigenous communities are given priority. 30 residents in attendance received their leases, while the remainder will have copied the legally binding document from the GLSC's sub-office in Kaituma. Commissioner and Chief Executive Officer of the GLSC, Trevor Ben, said that the distribution exercise was in keeping with the vision of the government to ensure that every Guyanese own the land which they occupy or are given the opportunity to own land as part of their patrimony. The minister team also visited the wider Port Kaituma community, where she met with residents to discuss mainly land-related issues. She assured residents that their respective complaints will be addressed. A team of government ministers on Monday conducted a tour of the new GENIQUIP building. At the conclusion, the company praised for their expression of confidence in the Guyanese economy. Kingsley Bryan tells us more.
Ministerial delegation that included Minister of Finance Winston Jordan, Natural Resources Minister Raphael Trotman, and Minister of Business Hemraj Rajkumar on Monday paid a site visit to the new building that houses GENIQUIP's operations. This is the third office that had been set up by the company in Guyana, and Minister of Finance Winston Jordan said it shows investors' confidence in the Guyanese economy.
But it was a good tour, and again it shows the expression of confidence in the economy that they could have built a third property like this and so extensive.
Jordan said the company is a good corporate citizen by not only contributing to several economic sectors, but also to the diversification of the Guyanese economy.
Happily, there are two of the top sectors in Guyana, mining and agriculture. They're selling both mining and agriculture equipment, which is good because we talk a lot about the diversification of the economy, regardless of oil. And they also let me into another secret that they also do other work for various other enterprises in Guyana, where they bring in certain types of equipment and office pieces. So I think they got their heads well screwed on. It's not only agriculture and mining, but they are also diversifying themselves, taking a cue from the economy.
Operations Manager of GENIQUIP, Halte Van Dyke, said the new building is an investment that amounts to approximately $2 million and includes new training, workshop, and showroom facilities. He added that the new design is in keeping with the green economy.
We went, let's just say, rather than going with a green building, we went with a lean building, so we're a bit more energy efficient. All the lights are LEDs, motion sensor, keyless entry into the building. So our total consumption on this building is actually the equivalent to a home. We use about 28 kVA on a total building of this size.
Van Dyke added that the company has also established partnerships with several other educational and related agencies. The company was lauded for their timely investment. For Globespan 24x7 News, this is Kingsley Bryan.
Thanks, Kingsley. The People's Progressive Party, PPPC, has organized a massive protest action against President David Granger at the Arthur Chang Convention Center in Liliendal. The president is expected to deliver a feature address at the commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. Opposition leader and former President Barrett Jagdeo, former President and Prime Minister Samuel Hines, and former President Donald Ramotar have since written the Chinese ambassador informing him that they will not be attending the ceremony because of Granger. Jagdeo had said at one of his most recent press conferences that his party will protest wherever the president attends until he names an election date. We have our team at that protest and we will bring you live coverage of it later. If you have any news story to share, don't hesitate to contact us on our Guyana WhatsApp number at 1-592-640-7615. We'll now take a look at our bridge reports. And we will now join Whitney Prasad at our studio in New York for regional and international news. Over to you, Whitney.
Thank you, Samuel. Now for the news and details, let's take a look at what's happening in New York. Guyanese in New York in the New York diaspora has shared their thoughts on the new estimated time frame by which Guyana will have its regional and general elections. Last week, the chairperson of the Guyana Elections Commission, Justice Claudette Singh, indicated to President David Granger that the commission will be ready for elections by the end of February 2020. Let's take a look at what citizens of Guyana in the U.S. had to say about this decision.
I think they should call the election because I don't think there is anything to be fearful of. If he's confident that he will win, then what is the hold back? He's saying he's within the Constitution. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. You know, but what I think is what the people requires. He's representing the people. He's not representing himself. So regardless of Indo-Guyanese or Afro-Guyanese, I think we are one people and we should start looking at ourselves like that. Call election, who win, that's it.
First of all, I'm the owner of Dave Barbershop, which is located at 13206 Liberty Avenue, South Richmond Hill. And my take on the GCOM and the election situation for 2020 is I respect that we have a date now that they can work with. All I'm asking, you know, for the leaders of Guyana, which is the opposition and the present party, which is the afternoon, to come together and work in unity to ensure that the election is free and fair and safe for the people, which is.
Well, I agree that you have to get it fixed properly, get the list properly or whatever the requirements for the election, polling places and so on. You have to get those fixed properly before you can have an election. You can't just have an election in any short time when you then fix it, you know. I think it's up to them. I think the president was right to say that, look, we are going to make sure that everything is, GCOM is ready, because GCOM runs the election, you see? The law is there.
Well, to be honest, you know, as a Guyanese, I'm glad that they came up with election date as in 2020. So it's good to know they're going to have an election very soon. Based on Guyana, you know, hope they have a fair election, the opposition and the present government come together and unite. You know, don't vote for race, you know, just vote for unity in the country and make Guyana a better Guyana.
Guyanese President David Granger will now have to announce a date for elections and dissolve Parliament. Elections were constitutionally due since March 21 of 2019, following the passage of the no-confidence motion against the government on December 21, 2018. The mayor of Georgetown, Ubraj Narain, last week met with New York's Mayor Bill de Blasio, where they held discussions on a number of pertinent issues and plans to develop a partnership between the two cities. Among the issues discussed were climate change, solid waste management, and best practices. The two city mayors also discussed the possibility of implementing exchanges and collaborating on training for staff at the Georgetown municipality. Following the conclusion of the meeting, Narain proposed to submit a draft of work program for cooperation between the cities of Georgetown and New York, and this was agreed upon by both parties. In addition to this, the Caribbean Federation Group hosted a dinner meeting with the Georgetown mayor, where a number of proposals were discussed. They looked at how the diaspora can play an active role in the restoration and development of Georgetown. And a man is dead and his 5-year-old daughter was injured after police say he jumped in front of a moving train in the Bronx in New York while holding on to her. Police say the 45-year-old man jumped onto the tracks while holding his daughter and was hit by a southbound 4 train Medics pronounced him dead at the scene. Sources say that the child was not hit by the train. She was taken to the Jacoby Medical Center to be treated for scratches. 2 other people were also treated. They may have jumped onto the tracks to help the young girl. If you are struggling with thoughts of suicide or worried about a friend or loved one, help is available. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK, that's 8255, or text TALK to 741-741, or visit the suicidepreventionhotline.org for more confidential emotional support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even if it feels like you are alone. You are not alone, rather. And the United States President Donald Trump, speaking Monday at the United Nations event on religious freedom, called on world leaders for adopting diversity and inclusion while shunning or silencing people of faith. While Trump did not specifically call out individual nations, Vice President Mike Pence, who spoke before the president, criticized several countries for attacks on religious freedom, including China's persecution of Muslims, Venezuela's contested leader Nicolas Maduro, his anti-Semitic rhetoric, and Iran's oppression of Christians, Jews, and Muslims. Trump, who was joined on stage by Pence, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and other world leaders, also announced his administration was allocating additional $25 million to protect religious freedom, as well as religious sites and relics, and launching an initiative with business leaders to protect religious freedom in the workplace. And let's take a look at what's happening in the United Kingdom. Jeremy Corbyn's policy on the Brexit has triumphed at Labour conference as members endorse his stance to stay neutral while negotiating a new deal. The party voted against a motion which would have seen Labour backing remain in any future events, but there was no confusion on the votes were called as the chair of the proceeding faced calls for a recount. Labour's position on Brexit has dominated the conference agenda with huge disagreements over the issue. The party's draft plan for the Brexit's policy was put forward by Mr. Corbyn. We'll take a short break, and when we return, more news after this.
Amros Travel Service is pleased to support Globespan 24x7 broadcasts. We provide travel solutions via our 4 locations in Trinidad. Chaguanas at 665-3383, Val Park 645-1604, Port of Spain 625-0800, and San Fernando at 652-4789. Remember, when you travel, Amros is the way to go.
Travelspan is pleased to announce special fares from New York to Guyana for Christmas. Seats are available to travel, and depending on which dates you choose, fares range from $849 to $1169. These are limited block seats on American Airlines non-stop flight from JFK to Guyana. Call 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437. Or book online at travelspan.com. Travelspan does have a payment plan, so travel plans, call Travelspan.
Thanks for staying with us. Almost 500 people have been detained in Egypt in the past few days after protests against alleged government corruption, human rights activists say. Demonstrations were reported in Cairo, Alexandria, and several other cities on Friday night, and in the port city of Suez on Saturday evening. The authorities have not yet released an official number of arrests. Public gatherings of more than 10 people without government approval have been banned since 2013, when President Abdel led the military's overthrow of Egypt's first democracy-elected leader, Mohamed Morsi. At least 60,000 people, most of the members of the Morsi's now outlawed Islamist movement, the Muslim Brotherhood, are reported to have been detained in the past 6 years. And finally in the news, Swedish campaigner Greta Thunberg has made a passionate speech to a world leader at the UN, accusing them of failing to act on climate change. About 60 world leaders were taking part in the one-day meeting organized by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He earlier said countries could only speak at the summit if they came with an action plan to cut out carbon emission. U.S. President Donald Trump, a climate change skeptic, had not been expected at the meeting. He spotted in the audience. And that's all for regional and international news for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Whitney Prasad reporting from New York. Back to our studio in Guyana. Let's join Kingsley for sports.
Thanks for staying with us. We'll now join Kingsley Bryan with our sport news.
Thanks, Samuel. In local football news, the 9th annual Courts Pee-wee football tournament kicked off on Saturday afternoon with the typical official march past and ceremonial kickoff, which was done by Courts Managing Director Clyde D. Haas. 2017 champions West Rheinfeldt Primary copped the prize for best team in the march past. The opening matchup saw the Timeri Primary against St. Ambrose Primary in an exciting starter. Kieran Williams of Timeri Primary scored the first goal, but shortly after, St. Ambrose's Obadiah Monroe scored an equalizing shot in the 17th minute. Estevan Medina of Timeri scored the final goal in the 34th minute, which saw Timeri emerge winners of that match, with the final score being 2-1. Other results of the day saw Pleasance Bosco Orphanage beat St. Agnes 2-0, while Iflot beat Anns Grove. Soosdyke also emerged victors in their match against F.E. Pollard with a 4-1 victory. Enterprise Primary had a walkover match after Smith Memorial were in no show. Defending champions St. Pius Primary seemed to be well informed and hungry for a consecutive win after an impressive 8-0 win over Mays. Meanwhile, the matches between West Rheinfeldt and Craig, along with the Marion Academy versus St. Margaret's matchup, ended with neither team penetrating the goal of the other side. And turning our attention now to the Heroes CPL 2019. The Guyana Amazon Warriors opened a 3-point lead at the top of the 2019 Heroes CPL table as they extended their perfect start to the season to 6 matches and guaranteed a playoff spot with a rain-affected victory. And in international football, women in Iran will be allowed to attend men's soccer matches, beginning with a World Cup qualifier next month, and this is according to FIFA. Football's world governing body has long been concerned by the issue, and its president Gianni Infantino spoke to Iranian officials following the death of Sahar Kodayari, a female fan who set herself on fire after she was denied access to a soccer stadium in Tehran. Speaking at a FIFA conference on women's football in Milan on Sunday, Infantino said he had been assured that women will be allowed to attend Iran's next match against Cambodia on October 10. The ban against women going to stadiums where men are playing was brought in shortly after the 1979 Islamic Revolution. In June, FIFA sent a letter to the Iranian Football Federation requesting a timeline that would allow women to be able to buy tickets for World Cup qualifiers, according to Reuters. Miss Kodayari, dubbed the Blue Girl on social media after the colors of her favorite Iranian soccer team, Estaglal, was charged with openly committing a sinful act by appearing in public without a hijab when she attempted to enter a stadium dressed as a man back in March, according to human rights group Amnesty International. Kodayari appeared in a Tehran court earlier this month, and after the case was adjourned, she poured gasoline over herself and set herself on fire. She died on Monday, September 9. Following Kodayari's death, Infantino called the ban unacceptable and stressed how important it was for the ban to be lifted. That's all for sports. Right back to you, Samuel.
Thanks, Kingsley. And that has brought us to the end of today's news. Before we go, here's a recap of our major headlines. President Granger could name date for elections this week. Finance Minister says public servants still to receive salary increases. Chinese couple burned to death in massive Vreeden Hoop fire. Another family returns from hurricane-ravaged Bahamas. And 79 land leases distributed to Matthews Ridge residents. Thank you for watching Globespan 24/7 News. On behalf of myself, the news and technical team, do have a great day. Evening. Do stay with us for live coverage of the protest action at the CHUNG Convention Center. Goodbye for now.